There is a pumpkin for everyone in this watercolor pumpkin beginner cookie decorating set. And to begin, we're going to start by mixing our royal icing. Obviously, you need to have cookies pre-baked for this, but once you have your round cookies, you're going to put together a bunch of royal icing, you're going to add some white food coloring, you're going to add water and mix, 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 mix until you can get a 15 to 20 second consistency. And here I am literally wiping my spatula through it and seeing how long it takes to even out. This is that 15 to 20 seconds, and mine is just about 15. Perfect. So next I'm going to set up my workspace. I lay out my little turntable, my parchment paper, grab my icing, grab my other supplies, which we'll get into, and my cookies. So one of the first other supplies you need is either an edible pen or a scribe. You can do this with a scribe. I find it's easier just visually, especially for these videos, and also when you're decorating, to use a edible pen. But I didn't use an edible pen for years when I was decorating. It is not necessary, but you're drawing out the shape of your pumpkin. Now, we've done this before if you did the fall set with me last year, where we did a leaf pile, a pumpkin, and a sort of looking candle. We drew out pumpkins in the same exact way, where you start with that oval in the middle, and then you just kind of add on to each side. It does not need to be perfect. Pumpkins are not perfect. And then you start with your white royal icing, the only icing we have, and you're going to just fill in all of those shapes. But we're going to do this in phases. So you're going to do the center one first. This is completely in real time. After the center one, you're going to go to the sides, the very outside ones, and that's because we want to have some definition in between these sections. Now, if there is a pumpkin or a gourd expert watching this, is there a name for these sections? I don't know. Please tell me. Put it in the comments. And then we're going to flip to the other side. This is why I love my little turntable. I don't have to touch my cookie. And you can see it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. But you're just going to do the outsides for each section, and then we're going to let it dry a little bit after this one's filled in, just so it's a little crusted over, is what we call it in the cookie world. That means it's not as shiny. It's got a little bit of matte finish to it. I'm coming in with my scribe just to even everything out, and if you look at the other two, they've already evened out. My icing, man, it is a good batch this time around. It doesn't always work that well for me. So I'm just making sure that everything's kind of where I want it to be. The top of this one looks a little funky, so I'm spending some time on it. Now it's dried a little bit. You can see it's not as shiny, so I'm coming back to do those other two sections. And I always like to outline them first. This outline does not need to be perfect. It really does not. But I like to outline it first because it really helps keep the definition. And you can see I am struggling to pipe this. I did it for every single one. These little middle sections, I think it's because they were small and my hands are not always the best in working with me. And then I just pressure piped it. It filled in really nicely. And again, we're going to do the other last section and just trying to get a straight line. I'm not getting a straight line, and I'm piping directly, instead of onto the cookie, the other royal icing, and that's why we like it to dry a little bit, because if I were to pipe directly onto the other royal icing when it was wet, we wouldn't have any of this definition in here. And you can even see I got outside the lines a little bit, and it's not fantastic looking. I'm going to come in with my scribe and kind of move the icing around, and I realize, oh, this evened out just fine. I don't really need to do that. And then I noticed this spot up here, and I'm like, can I get it down? No, I can't. So I'm going to make this look intentional. Like, that's exactly how this pumpkin grew. Because the thing is, nature doesn't look perfect. Our cookies don't either. Now it's dried a little bit more, and I'm just coming in. I didn't outline this. I'm just kind of pressure piping to fill in that top section. And then once that's dried, there's a lot of drying time in this. It doesn't need to be a lot of time. Just go through all of your cookies, do this step by step. I'm going to come in and just do like 3 lines for the stem. Now, Our pumpkins are drying. We actually want to give them a good amount of time, and we're going to create our watercolor. So I'm using a clear vanilla. Now, I actually think this vanilla was probably a little bit too nice because you just want something with a really high alcohol content. So that clear vanilla extract you can get from the grocery store is actually better. It's usually what I use. But I was like, oh, I got this one. It's a really nice one. My friend got it for me in Dominican Republic. Let's use it. Smelled great. I don't think it was the best. And we're going to create a few different colors so we can make all of these different pumpkins. So I'm starting off trying to make kind of like a muddy green. Now I thought that, I've seen all these different pumpkin colors and shapes and all these gourds, and I love it. And I thought the white ones were called Cinderella pumpkins. I didn't know what the green ones were called, but I also liked them. And I thought we'd do that. And then the orange ones, and then we're going to make a jack-o'-lantern. Well, I found out that you can have Cinderella pumpkins be white or orange or green. So all three of these could technically be Cinderella pumpkins. They're a little round for it, but that's okay. But I'm trying to make kind of a muddy green color, kind of like a muddy sage. And it looks very muddy here, and then I put it on the paper, and it on my paper towel, and it actually works out. The next one I'm going in to make is orange. And so this is pretty easy. You're going to use yellow, you're going to use red, perfect. For the muddy sage, it was a lot of yellow, a lot of blue, a very teeny bit of red, and a very teeny bit of black. And so we're just coming in with those 4 colors total. We have yellow, we have blue, we have black, and we have red. Just made yellow at the top because that's for our jack-o'-lantern. We want that yellow to pop like there's a candle in our pumpkin. And then we made some black. And then we're making kind of like a gray. And then the last color I don't show is we're making a very true green for the stems. Completely forgot to show that on screen. So you just want something that's not as muddy as that sage. Now we're going to come into our pumpkin. You're going to see this green that I did not show you how to make, but I'm making it for the stem. And I didn't record it because I realized after the fact that I did not like using that sage green for the stem. It just didn't look right. So I made a different kind of green, and it was just a combo again of yellow and blue. And I might have put a little bit of black into it. I completely apologize for really missing that step. Now, this is our white pumpkin, and you might think, are we not done decorating it? We put the green on the stem. We should begin. But no, I'm coming in with a big brush. I recommend having a big brush and a little brush. I'm big brush, and I'm grabbing that light gray and just washing over my entire cookie. And you might notice that my brush is picking up some of the royal icing. And this is why I think the base of my watercolor, that nice vanilla from Dominican Republic, was a little too nice. Because it's picking up my royal icing, and something that has a really high alcohol content doesn't do that. I know other people have used water. I have found that water does the same thing for me. Maybe I just like using too much liquid on top of my cookie. I don't know. So I recommend you can use an extract. You can get a very basic clear vanilla extract from the grocery store. You can use the extract that you flavor your cookies with. If you use like a lemon or an orange, you can use that for this as well, just as long as it's a clear color. You can also get a very high potency alcohol. That's not my specialty, so I can't really recommend it. I've never gotten that either. Anywho, back to this cookie. So I'm coming in with the black, which you might think, why am I putting black on a white cookie? And it's because all of those little grooves we're filling in with just a little bit of black. A little bit is going to go really far. And then I'm kind of just brushing that out onto the rest of the cookie because it creates that dimension. These white pumpkins, they're not a true white. They have dimension to them. So again, another crack in this cookie, another crack in that line. I really wish I knew what these ridges and edges were called so I could more accurately describe this pumpkin. But we're coming in, putting in the black there. And then once we have all of that, I'm going to come back with my big brush. I'm not going to get it wet. It's not going to have anything on it. And I'm just striping through it because we want to take away some of that heavy blackness that's kind of being left on the cookie while still leaving some of the color. And you can kind of see that happening as I'm brushing through. This is just a dry brush. There's no color on it. There's as little liquid as possible because I'm collecting that extra that's on the cookie. I don't want those really solid straight lines in the edges. Just kind of want to spread out all of that color. And once I'm happy with it, my cookie is complete. And there we have our white cookie. Next up, we're gonna do that green cookie, and I start with the stem on every single one of these, and there's literally no rhyme or reason to when I'm using the big brush versus the little brush, so really don't keep that in mind unless I specifically say, use the little brush for this. You can use the little brush, you can use the big brush, it's completely up to you. And I'm doing that green that I did not show, that I made off camera, and then I'm coming in with this sagey kind of muddy green for the actual cookie. I'm putting a whole base of that down. I'm not being very precise with this. The only thing I'm being precise around is with that other green. But I just want to get this on the cookie. I don't want to have too much of it just sitting on it. I don't want puddles of this color, but I want the whole cookie to be covered. I want it to be sage green. And you could stop right here. I'm not going to. I'm going to come in with that black. And I'm going to fill in the edges just like we did with the white. It just creates a little bit more dimension, and you might think, whoa, you did a little bit much there. And you would be right. That's exactly what went through my head. And then I said, this is watercolor. We're painting. We're having our Bob Ross moment of just trust the process and use your brush and just paint. It's really not that serious. We're painting cookies like we're doing a watercolor. So I'm coming in with that black. This is honestly where I would recommend using the smaller brush instead of a bigger brush. I don't know why I did it this way. It makes no sense. But I would use that small brush, put the black within the cracks of this cookie, and then come back with the big brush and brush it just like we did with the white one to get a little bit more dimension on this cookie, to add some shading to this pumpkin. But it seems to be working for me to use the big brush here. It certainly goes faster. All of this is in real time. You can really see how impatient of a cookie decorator I am because I did not speed this up at all. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, that looks good. There's our green pumpkin. Next, we are doing our tried and true orange pumpkin. This is the fastest. This one, you can make a whole setup. They're going to look great. Again, I'm starting off putting that green, a very true, probably forest green, onto the stem of the pumpkin. And then once I complete that, I'm going to come in with the orange and just brushing it on very generously. A big difference between this orange one and the green one and the white one is I'm not going to come in and add any of that dark shading because you don't really see that as much on the orange pumpkins as you do on the white or the green ones, which is interesting. Maybe I'm just seeing really dirty pumpkins for the white and the green ones, and I'm not seeing that for the orange. But I also just think the orange is a little bit maybe brighter. Maybe we're not seeing that dimension as much. Maybe I just have bad eyes, which it very well could be the case. But I am just kind of with each brush filled with orange doing each section of this orange cookie until I feel like I have a good color and I'm happy with it. And kind of looking at anything I might want to fix. Maybe I want to add a little bit more color at the bottom. You certainly could come in with that black if you wanted to. I don't on this cookie. I'm very happy with my orange pumpkin. Now this is the hardest cookie, and this is a great example of why am I using the tiny brush on the stem here? Who knows? The big brush works just fine. But this cookie I would probably recommend after we paint our stem on, we're going to do the yellow jack-o'-lantern face. And I would recommend, just because there is dry time involved with this cookie, put the jack-o'-lantern face on first before you decorate any of the other cookies, before you're painting any of the other cookies, and then come back and finish this one. Now, if you want a whole set of jack-o'-lanterns, which I would love to see, please do that and share it with me. If you do a whole set of jack-o'-lanterns, you do all the faces, give a little bit of dry time, put a fan on these cookies, and then come back and add your black. So I'm coming in. One big tip I will give you on these jack-o'-lantern faces is try and not get your watercolor into the cracks of these pumpkins as much as possible. So that's why these eyes are not straight on center. It would have put a lot of crack. It would have put a lot of the color into the crack of these pumpkins. And since I was already having an issue where I was kind of taking like the top layer of my royal icing off my cookie, I wanted to put as little liquid on these cookies as possible. And again, I think that came down to the vanilla extract I was using and truly nothing else. But I'm just drawing on or really I'm painting on just a pumpkin face. And some people do noses on their pumpkins. I did not do a nose on this one. I feel like when I carve pumpkins, I do a nose. There aren't a lot of teeth. Look, it's a cookie. We don't need to be that precise and serious. Maybe when we get more advanced, right, we can be a little bit more precise and serious, but we're not doing that right here. And if you say, hey, Cami, no, I can be more precise and serious with my cookie decorating, please prove me wrong. I would love to see it. I had never seen anyone watercolor a pumpkin cookie before, so please completely show me up. I want to see it. So back to our cookie. We are painting on this jack-o'-lantern face. It is yellow, and I'm just trying to get the tops of the mouths up. Unfortunately, they're both just in the cracks of this pumpkin, and I'm just using as little as possible of that yellow. So it doesn't kind of like muddle or eat away at my icing. You can see it a little bit here, how the yellow ate away at the icing. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Anyone who's looking that closely at the cookie, why you should be eating it. Anywho, the yellow dried. We're coming in with the black, and I'm kind of doing big sweeping strokes around where the face is not. And then I'm going to come in and be more precise around the face. So getting these big strokes in first, and here comes more of the precision work. And you could come back with your very precise brush. I did not. I just stuck to the big one because I'm lazy. But you could come in and you could have way more precise outlining of this face. Just remember when you are doing this, that it is going to dry a little bit lighter. So as I'm making this face, you might think like, this does not look very good. And you might think that at the end anyways, and that's totally fine. Not every cookie everyone's going to like, but I do think this one comes together very nicely. And when it dries particularly, the whole cookie is just a little bit lighter and it looks very good. Now, if you want it to be darker, I would recommend doing a few stages of painting on this black, letting this dry and coming back and doing another layer. And by stages, I mean layers. And you could probably do maybe 3 max, and then you'd have kind of a lot of liquid you've put on your cookie. But you definitely could. I think 1 layer is enough. I come back again and kind of hit those edges because you can see the brush marks. It's a little darker around the face, so I just want to make sure that the edges are getting enough. And I wanted to cover the top of it because this is supposed to be a dark pumpkin. I wanted the green to be green, and I covered it in a black so we still have a little bit of the green, which you can see much better in person. Just like you would a jack-o'-lantern outside. You see the face, you might see that the color's a slightly different top than the rest of it, and there is our jack-o'-lantern cookie, and here are all of the cookies, all of the different dimension. Let me know which one's your favorite.